All right. How you guys doing? Um, I got a couple emails talking about some confusion and so about the assignment. So I just want to really quickly clarify for you guys what's going on with this assignment. I don't want you guys to be confused. So if you look, here's the assignment here. Poetry day number one, Christopher Marlowe. So just really quickly, want to just review these three documents and what's expected so that you guys can get these done. So the first thing I want you to open up is this README document. All right. And this right here is just your instructions. It's going over everything that's expected for the assignment. So if you look, you got the standard, got the learning targets, the usual stuff that you guys see. There's nothing here that you guys need to copy down or anything like that. Just read it so that you guys know what this assignment's about. But basically, what you guys are going to do is you're reading this poem called The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. It's by Christopher Marlowe. Now, Christopher Marlowe was a playwright and a poet. He was alive when Shakespeare was alive, so they were contemporaries. And they wrote dramas and also poetry, obviously. So this is one poem that Christopher Marlowe wrote. Now, the type of poem that this is called a pastoral poem right here, pastoral poetry. Now, pastoral poem, I gave you guys down here a little definition of what that means. Just want to kind of walk you through it so that there's no confusion as to what that means. So a pastoral poem is poetry that looks at life in nature as an idealized way of life. So it's looking at living a country life where you're one way with nature, you're in harmony with it. And so pastoral poems talk a lot about nature, right? And so these are some things right here that pastoral poems all have in common. The setting of the pastoral poem is a beautiful natural place. Usually we have a shepherd as the central character. It's not always true, but that's often true. Pastoral poetry often has a religious thing to it. So religious association. So sometimes it's a religious allegory. Allegory meaning basically it's paralleling to something in religion in order to make a point. Also, it's this idea of returning to an idealized way of life, the golden age, if you will, where humans lived in complete harmony with nature. It's focused on an imagined life in the country rather than a realistic one. And it's working the belief that country life is superior to urban life. So pastoral poetry really is all about looking back at life in the country and state and just making an argument that it is a more natural environment for people. So with that in mind, you guys are going to do two things. First, you're going to read and annotate the poem. I'm going to show you what I mean by annotate. You're going to read and annotate it. And then after that, you are going to complete a typecast. The typecast, again, it has its own document. I'm going to go over that as well. All right, so once you have that read, you're going to go over here. You're going to open up your copy of the poem. All right, so with your copy of the poem, what I want you to do is read it, obviously. I want you to read it at least twice. Once I want you to read it to yourself, and I want you to read it out loud. You can even look up online. There are multiple versions of it being read to you. But basically, I'm going to read this really quickly, and then I'll go over what I mean by annotation. So, The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. Come, live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that valleys, groves, hills and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses, and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. All right, so that's the poem. So if you look back at the instructions, I ask you guys to annotate the text. And I give you instructions on how that should look. So let's look at this first one, A. Put unfamiliar words or words you don't know in bold. Next, look up the definitions for those words and write them in as a comment. So let me show you how that works. So let's say there's a word here I don't know. Let's say melodious. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to put it in bold. All right? Because it's a word I don't know. And now I'm going to look it up. When I look it up, it says melodious, adjective of producing or having a pleasant tune or pleasant sounding. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our poem. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make a comment. And then again, go back real quick. Pleasant sounding. So I'm going to say pleasant sounding. And then boom, comment. Right? So now that tells me that, okay, this word you didn't know, so you looked it up and then boom, now there it is. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing, if you notice any repeated ideas, highlight the portion of the text in yellow, then make a comment that identifies the idea in one sentence. So let's look at that. So first line, come live with me and be my love. At the end, then live with me and be my love. That is repetition of ideas. So I would highlight that in yellow. I would go up here, I would highlight this in yellow. And then right click, comment. And then just give me a sentence explaining why it is that you chose that. So I might say, this first line, or the first line and last lines, both discuss love, or something along those lines. It doesn't have to be overtly complicated, just something that shows me that you are engaging with that text, right? So this establishes to us that this is a poem about love, and you just do that a couple times. You look for the connections that you can find, and you just do the same type of thing here. If there's something you have a question about, you highlight it in red and comment what the question is. Then if something surprised you, or you made a connection between this text or something else that we've read this year, highlight in purple, then make a comment that explains it. Once you're done, then boom, this is done. Because remember, when you click on yours, it makes a copy for you, right? So then you're just going to turn this in, right? So then that's done. When you're done with that, let me undo all these changes actually. There we go. All right, when you're done with that, you're going to open up Typecast. Now, again, I recommend you have all these open at once. It just makes things a lot easier for you. And now you open up the Typecast. Now, the cool thing about this, again, it makes your own copy. You're just going to type in it, right? So you're just going to put in what you want to say in the actual box, and then it stays there, and then boom, that's your work. So again, let me just go over for you Typecast and what it means again. Now, I'm not expecting perfection here. I recognize that this is something, while we've done this a couple times, I recognize that with a new poem, and in our current circumstance of our distance from each other, it kind of makes it difficult sometimes. So over here on the left, you have all the things that you need to look at: title, paraphrase, connotation, attitude, shift, title revisited, and theme. And next to each one of these is a description of what it's looking for. So if you look at title, it's pretty straightforward. Title is, before you read the poem, think about what do you think it means, or what do you think the poem's about based on the title. So you just say something like, based on the title, poem, Marlowe might be discussing blah, 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 whatever it is you think he might be discussing. Again, I don't need paragraphs here. I just need really thoughtful sentences, 1 or 2 sentences for each. So that's title. You just jot down what you think the poem is going to be about. Use the title only to find clues. Next is paraphrase. Paraphrasing is you're just trying to put it into your own words. One of the biggest problems that students often make in poetry analysis is jumping to conclusions before understanding what is taking place in the poem. All right, this right here is very important. The reason why I want you to paraphrase is because I don't want you to jump to a conclusion before analyzing everything that Christopher Marlowe has to say. So you're going to write exactly what happens in the poem in your own words. This can be a couple sentences. I would say for a poem like this, where every stanza's basically a sentence, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences here. You just write exactly what it's about. Don't interpret. Don't tell me what you think Christopher Marlowe means. Just tell me what Christopher Marlowe is literally saying. Okay? So you're summarizing. Another way to think about it is summarizing what's happening in the poem. Okay? You're summarizing, not analyzing. So summarize. Okay, after you do that, you're going to look at connotation. Now, connotation is I don't want to say the hardest, but it's definitely the most in-depth step of this process. So if you look here, although this term usually refers to solely, well, let's ignore that for a sec. You look at poetic devices, okay? That's the point. Poetic devices that contribute to meaning, effect, or both of the poem. So here are things that you can look at. You can look at imagery, figures of speech like simile, metaphor, personification, symbolism, diction, point of view, things like alliteration, rhyme, rhythm. You want to talk about these things. Now, do you need to talk about all of them? No, you only need to talk about the ones that you can find in the poem. All right, so don't feel like you need to have 1 or 2 examples of each. You just need to have some. I just need to see some evidence of effort in this section. So you're going to identify them. I would say a good idea would be to say in line blah blah blah. Marlowe uses imagery, and then I would give the quote, and then just give me a brief little thing that like why. So there's your quote. Marlowe uses this imagery to do what? Okay. Why is Marlowe using this imagery? What impact does it have on the poem? What impact does it have on the meaning? What impact does it have on the tone? Things like that. All right. So this will probably be your longest section realistically. That's fine. After that, attitude. So after you've looked at the devices, you're going to look at what the speaker's attitude is. So this is your tone, okay? What tone do you get from the poem? What word choice contributes to it? Basically, why that tone, okay? Why that tone? You can usually name. You usually can't name tone with a single word. So I want you to be complex about this. What is Christopher Marlowe feeling in writing this poem? So this kind of starts to get you toward that meaning, like what the poem actually means. Shift. A shift is basically anytime the poem changes. So there might be keywords, things like but, yet, however, although, those will usually signal shifts. Sometimes punctuation can signal shifts. The change in stanza, change in line length, change in sound, change in meaning. Basically, a shift is any time where the author is shifting the focus of the poem, and you got to think about why the author's doing that. Because usually, well, no, always, the author's not just going to do that just for fun. There's a reason, so you need to figure out what that reason is. After you do all that, you're going to look at the title again. And now that you've looked at the poem in more detail, now what do you think the title means? And then theme. What is the poem saying about human experience, motivation, or condition? What subject or subjects does the poem address? All right, so what is the poem about? What is the theme of the poem? And that's that. So I know that this might take you a little bit, but you guys got time, right? You got multiple days to get this done. Couple things. So one, make sure you read these descriptions, okay? I paraphrase them, but it's still worthwhile reading what it has to say. And also make sure you go in order. So title first, then paraphrase and connotation. You just go 1, 2, 3. Okay. Don't try to skip around because the way that this process is laid out, it's laid out in such a way that you have to follow it exactly. And then when you're done with all that, then you're just going to turn the whole assignment in. All right. Now I got a question. How am I going to grade you? So I'm going to grade you with rubrics. So if you look here, there's a rubric. And this rubric goes over the same standard that I listed in the instructions. Basically, what is the central idea of the text, and analyzes development over the course of the text. So I'm going to look at your annotations that you do and your typecast that you do in order to really grade you on this. So your typecast is going to be where I mostly see this, all right, where you're identifying central ideas, in this case, theme. All right, so our central idea in this case is theme. You're going to identify it and explain how the author develops it. And that's going to be all the rest of this. So basically, did you give me no evidence? Is it insufficient? Is it emerging, proficient, exemplary? You can read these, so I'm not going to bother reading them out loud here. But one thing to state, the difference between a proficient and an exemplary is, one, the quality of your analysis. So make sure that your typecast is very detailed. But then also that you have two meaningful or subtle central ideas. So try to come up with more than one theme if you can in order to get that exemplary. And when that's all done, you turn it in, and yeah, from there I'll update you when I find out more, but that's what we're looking at. Looks like I got 3 of them. That's good. Now, make sure that you turn in both. Okay, so Deontay turned in both. Cordell turned in both. Allison, if you see this, you only turned in one. Okay, you only turned in the poem itself. You need to make sure you turn in both. If you're confused as to how to turn in both, ask Cordell or Deontay how to do that. Okay, good job, you two. If you see this, Allison, good job. Just make sure you get in the other half. All right, so that's that. Hopefully this was helpful. If you guys have more questions, feel free to email me, text me, whatever you need to do to get a hold of me, and I'll update you when I know more. And I hope you guys are doing well. We'll start doing our Zoom calls soon. Again, I'll let you know. And you guys have a good day, okay? All right, bye.